This
The
nutritional
stars of
paste
the
is
distant
synthesized on
galaxy
sector
glimmered
gamma
like
9.
scattered diamonds against the black
I
velvet
hope
of
it tastes
space.
better than the last
Among
batch.
them, the silver spires of the Zalarian armada moved silently, their formation precise, their engines humming with an eerie quietness. To the aliens aboard, this mission was routine, a survey of a minor species in a quiet system on the edge of explored space. Every civilization had a category: primitive, intermediate, advanced, and a few extraordinary outliers. The Xylarian Council had seen thousands of worlds, studied countless life forms, and understood the patterns of evolution, warfare, and intelligence. And then, they found humans. Lieutenant Krill stared at the holographic display floating above the command console. Blue oceans and green lands swirled on the screen. Tiny silver dots represented human settlements, their lights blinking faintly across continents. The sensors indicated minimal space activity. Humans had barely scratched the sky. By every metric in the Zalarian Codex, they were insignificant. They have no significant technology beyond planetary flight, Krill said. His voice, melodic but clipped, carried the calm confidence of the experienced. No warp engines, no interstellar fleets. They are harmless. Commander Velira, seated in the command chair of the lead ship, narrowed her multifaceted eyes at the display. Harmless, yes, but curiosity always demands observation. Launch a probe. Let's see what the inhabitants are truly capable of. The probe, small and silent, detached from the ship and began its journey toward Earth. It moved like a whisper, scanning the planet with instruments far more advanced than any human could imagine. Yet, what the aliens did not anticipate was how unpredictable humans could be. On Earth, in a city that stretched like a ribbon of steel and glass, people went about their lives unaware. Children played in parks, couples walked along riverbanks, and workers hurried along crowded streets. Somewhere in a high-rise lab, a young scientist named Dr. Lena Armitage peered into a microscope, adjusting the lens to observe a sample of soil microbes. To her, the universe was vast and mysterious, but immediate problems, climate change, disease, energy shortages, demanded her attention. Meanwhile, in another part of the world, a hurricane gathered strength over the ocean. Ships struggled against growing waves, and satellites tracked the storm's unpredictable path. Humanity was fighting for survival in small ways every day, and they did so with courage, creativity, and cooperation. It was this resilience, unnoticed by the aliens at first, that would soon catch their attention. The probe transmitted its data back to the Xylarian fleet. Alien analysts scanned the readings, expecting to see predictable patterns of behavior. Instead, they were met with something unusual. Humans did not always react as expected. A section of humans faced a sudden natural disaster, a storm that tore through a coastal city. Instead of panicking or fleeing aimlessly, they organized. Emergency services coordinated with volunteers. People improvised tools and shelters. Civilians guided each other to safety using instincts and ingenuity. The probe's sensors could not quantify it. Humans were doing things the Zalarian Codex had never accounted for. Krill frowned. Their response, it's unpredictable. They think in ways not recorded in the database. Velira tilted her head, her thoughts racing. Unpredictable, perhaps dangerous. Send another probe. We need a closer look. This time, the probe entered human airspace. It hovered invisibly above cities and rural lands alike, recording data at speeds the humans could not perceive. And again, it noted the anomaly. Humans adapted to every new challenge. A blocked road did not halt them. They found alternative paths. Power went out in a region, and people devised temporary solutions with generators, batteries, even ingenuity born from sheer necessity. One small event caught the probe's sensors in particular. A child on a collapsing playground swung from a rope just as a support beam gave way, landing safely and helping another child escape. Simple, small human actions, but remarkable to the Zalarian eyes. "Interesting," Krill muttered. "They are resourceful, yes, but they are weak. They have fragile bodies, limited technology, and no real defenses. Observation only." Yet Valira was silent for a moment, studying the patterns. Her mind, trained to calculate probabilities, struggled to reconcile what she saw. "They are unpredictable. That is not weakness. That is potential." Before Krill could respond, the probe detected something new, a human responding not just to disaster but to an alien presence. A small group of engineers had noticed strange signals in the atmosphere, energy distortions invisible to the naked eye. Without knowing what it was, they began to experiment, sending signals of their own, trying to detect, communicate, or even counter the anomaly. It was the first contact, though humans had no idea yet. Valira leaned forward, the alien equivalent of curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "They notice us, and they adapt. They are aware." Across Earth, humanity carried on, blissfully ignorant of the silver eyes observing them from orbit. Yet in their minds, ideas sparked, connections formed, and the subtle awareness of something beyond the sky began to stir. Even in the simplest human acts, rescuing a neighbor, repairing a power line, improvising a solution, there was proof of something remarkable: ingenuity, courage, and unity in the face of uncertainty. The Zalarian analysts, however, grew uneasy. "These humans, they should be predictable," Krill insisted. "They are fragile, they cannot possibly pose a threat." Valira's multifaceted eyes glimmered. "Fragile, yes, but their minds are not. Observe closely. There is something in their behavior, something we cannot calculate, cannot anticipate. That is dangerous, dangerous." The word echoed in the corridors of the lead ship. For the Zalarian armada, danger meant unpredictability. And humans, in their small, chaotic ways, were proving to be startlingly unpredictable. On Earth, night fell. Cities lit up with artificial light, rivers reflected the moon's glow, and in quiet towns people dreamed of their future. They dreamed not of space fleets or alien encounters, but of love, family, progress, and adventure. Yet unknowingly they were preparing. Every act of problem-solving, every moment of courage, every spark of creativity was laying the foundation for what the galaxy would soon see. The Zalarian fleet remained above, silent and poised. They had observed hundreds of civilizations before. They had cataloged species, predicted behavior, and assumed superiority at every turn. And yet, for the first time in centuries, the Council felt a flicker of uncertainty. Valira spoke quietly, though every officer could hear the weight in her voice. "This species, they are not what we expected. We must remain cautious. The galaxy may not be ready for humans." Below, on the blue and green planet, a child looked up at the stars, imagining spaceships and far-off worlds. The humans did not know it yet, but their moment had begun. The probe continued to orbit silently, recording, analyzing, transmitting. But every calculation brought the same conclusion: humans were something new, something the Zalarian armada could not predict. In the following days, humans continued their lives, facing storms, solving problems, building, dreaming. And somewhere in orbit, the alien fleet began to prepare. They underestimated humans as every other species did. That mistake, they would soon learn, could be catastrophic. For humanity was unpredictable, humanity was adaptable, and humanity was about to announce its presence to the galaxy in a way no one could ignore. The first encounter had begun. The galaxy, unknowingly, was not ready. The Zalarian armada hovered silently above Earth, their ships gleaming like silver shards against the blackness of space. From orbit, the aliens could see the planet's spinning continents, the oceans stretching endlessly, and the patterns of human activity that were still, in their eyes, primitive. Yet each passing hour brought data that defied expectations. Humans did not behave like any species the Zalarian Council had encountered. On Earth, life carried on. Dr. Lena Armitage had noticed strange anomalies in the atmosphere, energy signatures that had no clear explanation. Scientists around the world reported equipment malfunctions, readings that seemed to defy physics, and signals that flickered and disappeared without pattern. Lena and her colleagues were puzzled, but they were also curious. Humanity thrived on curiosity. At first, humans believed these anomalies were natural. A strange storm here, a satellite glitch there. But gradually it became clear that the signals were not natural. They were precise, coordinated, and seemingly intelligent. Unbeknownst to the humans, the Zalarian Armada was probing their planet, trying to understand their behavior, their technology, and their unpredictable minds. The aliens decided to escalate. They deployed unmanned observation drones, tiny devices that slipped through the atmosphere unnoticed. These drones mapped cities, recorded human movements, and observed military bases. The Zalarian commanders were confident. The humans had no weapons capable of reaching space. They had no fleets, no shields, no way to resist. And yet, the drones returned with unexpected results. Humans adapted in ways the aliens could not predict. When a drone approached a city, humans noticed the strange interference in communications and began tracking it. Engineers rigged devices to trace the source, amateurs and professionals working together, combining knowledge in ways that defied alien logic. One night in a coastal city, a sudden blackout struck. Power grids failed, traffic lights stopped, and alarms screamed across neighborhoods. Humans acted quickly. Volunteers organized traffic control manually, while engineers worked feverishly to restore communications. Makeshift power stations were set up using car batteries and portable generators. The Zalarian sensors recorded these actions, puzzled. Humans were not panicking. They were improvising, and doing so with remarkable speed and efficiency. Lieutenant Krill stared at the incoming data, frustration evident in his tone. They adapt too quickly. Each action we predict, they counter in ways that defy probability. Valara's eyes reflected the data streams. It is not just adaptation, she said. It is creativity. Coordination. They learn, they do not fear. And yet they are still fragile. To test the humans further, the Zalarian Council sent a small reconnaissance fleet closer to the planet. These ships were faster, more maneuverable, and capable of minor interventions. The aliens' goal was simple: observe human reactions and determine whether they posed a threat. It did not go as expected. The humans noticed. On board a small research vessel, human engineers had been experimenting with new energy sources. When the alien fleet disrupted communications, a young engineer named Miguel Alvarez noticed strange fluctuations in satellite signals. Using a combination of civilian drones and improvised sensors, Miguel traced the disturbances to orbit. "We're not alone up there," he said, eyes wide with excitement and fear. He called a meeting of experts, including Lena. "Something is observing us. It's not human, it's big and intelligent." The human response was instinctive. There was no panic, no surrender, no waiting for orders from above. Scientists, engineers, and civilians collaborated, pooling knowledge from military, academic, and amateur sources. They built signal interceptors, improvised detection devices, and communication jammers, tools cobbled together from existing technology and pure ingenuity. The Zalarian fleet watched with fascination and growing unease. Every human action was unpredictable, clever, and remarkably fast. When the aliens tried to disrupt communications further, humans rerouted signals through improvised networks, using satellites, radios, and even light signals. Every alien maneuver was countered in real time. Then came the first direct encounter. One of the smaller alien ships attempted to descend into the upper atmosphere to gather more detailed data. Humans, noticing an anomaly in satellite imaging, launched drones, simple, lightweight devices that zipped toward the alien ship. The drones carried sensors and countermeasures, jamming the alien instruments just enough to interfere with their scans. The aliens were stunned. "They are interfering with our technology without knowing what we are," Krill exclaimed. "They cannot possibly understand our systems." Valira shook her head. "They do not need to understand fully. They anticipate, adapt, and improvise. That is enough." Meanwhile, across Earth, humans were reacting not with fear but with curiosity and resolve. A small civilian team, armed with laptops, sensors, and intuition, had begun documenting the strange craft. They theorized its purpose, predicted its movements, and even sent back counter-signals. One engineer, using a series of reflective mirrors and radio pulses, managed to confuse the alien sensors long enough for humans to track the ship's trajectory. It was the first time humanity had actively engaged the alien presence. And they did so without weapons, without fleets, without force, only intelligence, ingenuity, and courage. The Zalarian commanders convened an emergency meeting aboard the flagship. Valira's voice resonated through the chamber. "We underestimated them. Their behavior, it is erratic in the way that matters. They are fragile, yes, but their minds, they are fast, creative, and cooperative. We must reconsider our approach." Krill's tone was sharp. "They are still primitive. They have no true means of defense. Observation should continue. We can overwhelm them if necessary." Valira's gaze did not waver. "Do not assume weakness, Krill. Every species we have faced that seemed weak has eventually posed unexpected challenges. Humans may be unlike any species we have catalogued. And that is dangerous." Back on Earth, humanity's ingenuity continued to shine. Across continents, individuals and groups began noticing anomalies in the sky, lights that moved with purpose, distortions that seemed to respond to human actions. They did not panic. Instead, they experimented, collaborated, and documented. Engineers worked with amateur astronomers, students sent coded messages, and scientists theorized the most extraordinary possibility: that they were being observed by intelligent life. In one striking moment, a team of young programmers managed to send a simple, encoded signal to the alien drone. They used a pattern based on prime numbers, broadcasting it in pulses of light and radio waves. The alien drone paused, scanning, and then responded in a basic, cautious manner, an action no one could have predicted. The Xylarian fleet was forced to acknowledge a reality they had never faced before. Humans were not just reacting. They were engaging, learning, and improvising at a pace the aliens could not predict. Valira leaned closer to the display, her many eyes reflecting the earth below. "They are not ready," she whispered. "Not the humans. The galaxy was not ready for what humanity could do." Krill's pride bristled. "We control the skies. Our ships can strike without warning. They are still fragile. No amount of improvisation changes that." Valira's response was calm yet firm. "You misunderstand. It is not their physical fragility that is dangerous. It is their mind, their courage, and their ability to work together. Every action we anticipate, they respond in ways that defy prediction. That is what makes them a force. That is what makes them remarkable." The humans, unaware of the alien deliberations, continued their work. Drones, satellites, and signals moved like pieces on a chessboard. Each movement was calculated, intuitive, and bold. They began to share findings globally, using networks, the internet, and personal communication devices to coordinate efforts on a scale that surprised even themselves. And then, the first act of unintentional diplomacy occurred. A small alien craft, scanning a populated city, became ensnared in a network of human tracking devices and communication pulses. Engineers on the ground had not intended to capture it. They only wanted to study it. But the craft was forced to hover in place, confused and limited by the interference. Humans, curious and cautious, observed the craft with binoculars, cameras, and drones. One engineer, Lena, suggested, "We should try to communicate. If it's intelligent, it may understand basic patterns. They sent a simple, repeated sequence, a greeting of sorts, built on mathematics, light patterns, and sound frequencies. The alien craft paused, analyzing. This brief moment of interaction, fragile and uncertain, marked the first tentative bridge between humanity and an interstellar species. Valira watched the data, her expression unreadable. "This species," she said slowly, "they are not just unpredictable, they are capable of initiative. And initiative, Krill, is the seed of power." The lieutenant shifted uncomfortably. "Power. They have no fleets, no shields, no weapons to threaten us." "But they have minds," Valira said, her voice heavy with meaning. "And a mind that learns, adapts, and cooperates is far more dangerous than any weapon. They are not a species to underestimate, not in the slightest." Across Earth, humans continued their quiet, heroic work. They fixed problems, protected each other, and observed the unknown. The storm that had threatened a coastal city was tamed by human ingenuity. The blackout that had disrupted communication was overcome by clever improvisation. And the alien drones above were forced to witness the unexpected resilience of a species they had assumed would be fragile and submissive. The first encounter was no longer just observation. Humans were participating, engaging, and affecting outcomes in ways that no one, least of all the Zalarian Armada, could have predicted. And that, above all, was what made the aliens uneasy. The galaxy, vast and calculated, had never faced a species like humanity. Fragile bodies, yes. Limited technology, yes. But minds capable of adaptation, courage, and cooperation. That was a force unlike any the Zalarian Armada had ever encountered. Valira turned from the display, her voice low but filled with gravity. "Observe closely, Krill. Study them, but remember this: underestimate them and you will regret it. The galaxy is not ready for humans." And somewhere below, on a blue-green planet spinning silently in the void, humans looked up at the stars with wonder, curiosity, and determination. They did not yet know that they were being watched, or that their ingenuity had already begun to shake the confidence of a species far more advanced than themselves. But the first seeds of a challenge had been planted. The rising stakes had begun, and humanity was ready, not with weapons, but with minds sharper, braver, and more creative than the galaxy could have imagined. The Earth rotated silently beneath the Zalarian Armada, unaware that the calm of its blue oceans and green continents hid a species unlike any the galaxy had ever encountered. From orbit, the alien commanders watched, frustrated and fascinated in equal measure. Humans were no longer merely reacting, they were taking initiative. Every attempt to observe, probe, or intimidate had been countered with ingenuity and courage that defied alien expectations. Lieutenant Krill tapped his claws against the console in irritation. "Commander, our analysis is complete. Humans remain fragile. Our ships could strike at will. Why has no decisive action been taken?" Valira's multifaceted eyes reflected the planet below. "Because, Krill, they are unpredictable, not in the way we calculate. They adapt, they improvise, and worst of all, they learn. Every measure we take is met with a countermeasure we did not anticipate. Fragile, perhaps. Dangerous, absolutely." The alien fleet decided it was time to test humanity's limits. A series of small strikes would be carried out, disabling satellites, interfering with communications, and threatening key human cities. The Zalarian command expected fear, chaos, and submission. What they received instead was something far more remarkable. On Earth, humans noticed the anomalies almost immediately. Satellites went dark, radio signals flickered, and GPS systems failed. In response, human engineers, scientists, and volunteers sprang into action. City after city improvised alternative networks, rerouted communication signals, and shared information globally. Where the aliens expected panic, they found collaboration. Where they expected chaos, they found calm determination. In the United States, Dr. Lena Armitage coordinated with teams across the world. "We can't stop them with weapons," she explained, addressing a room filled with engineers, coders, and amateur radio operators. "But we can outthink them. We can predict their moves better than they predict ours if we work together. Let's turn their interference into our advantage." Her plan was simple in concept but brilliant in execution. Humans used the disrupted satellite networks to create false signals, luring alien drones into loops where they became disoriented. They created decoy transmissions that made it appear as if human cities were in chaos, while the real operations continued unhindered. The aliens, confident in their superior technology, were unable to separate signal from noise. Meanwhile, on the surface, everyday citizens played crucial roles. A teacher in Italy rerouted emergency communications through a network of amateur radios. A farmer in Brazil used his drones, originally for crop monitoring, to observe anomalies in the sky and relay their position. Across the globe, humans improvised tools, repurposed technology, and worked with ingenuity born not of fear, but of survival instinct and curiosity. The first direct confrontation came near a major spaceport. A small alien reconnaissance ship attempted to descend, intending to capture or disable key human infrastructure. Humans, predicting the move through careful observation and analysis, anticipated the ship's trajectory. They launched a network of civilian drones, some armed with EMP pulses, others with signal disruptors, forcing the alien craft to hover in confusion. Krill's claws twitched with frustration. "They are interfering with our technology. They are doing this without even knowing what we are." Valera's voice was calm, though heavy with thought. "That is precisely the point. They do not need to understand us fully to be dangerous. Initiative, creativity, and coordination, that is what we are witnessing." Humans did not stop there. They began to experiment with communication. Using pulses of light, radio signals, and mathematical sequences, they attempted a simple message: a greeting, a probe, a test. One clever team used prime numbers to create a pattern impossible to mistake for natural phenomena. The alien craft paused, scanning, and then responded cautiously. The moment of interaction was brief, tense, and fragile, but it marked a turning point. Humans were no longer passive. They were participants. Valera turned to her officers, her tone grave. "This species, they are dangerous not because of what they have, but because of what they can become. Observe, analyze, adapt, but do not underestimate them. They are learning faster than we anticipated." On Earth, the human response escalated. Engineers hacked together an improvised tracking network using satellites, drones, and even reflective mirrors to confuse and mislead the aliens. Cities created redundant power systems, emergency communication networks, and mobile command centers, all coordinated in real time through decentralized networks. The aliens had expected submission or panic, but humanity responded with creativity, courage, and unity. Then came the decisive moment. The Zalarian fleet, confident in their superiority, attempted a concentrated strike on the largest human cities: New York, Tokyo, Berlin, and Sao Paulo. The plan was to demonstrate dominance, test human reaction, and, if necessary, begin direct subjugation. What they did not anticipate was humanity's ability to think outside the framework of expectation. Humans had already prepared contingency plans. Using data gathered from initial encounters, they predicted the timing and trajectory of the strike. Engineers and scientists devised countermeasures using ordinary technology enhanced by ingenuity: electromagnetic pulses, reflective signal arrays, and mobile interference units. Entire cities acted like living machines, their citizens part of a coordinated response system. When the alien strike began, the humans were ready. Satellites were rerouted, signals jammed, and decoys activated. The Xylarian weapons, meant to disrupt human life, were rendered ineffective. Drones were intercepted, and interference patterns forced the alien ships into confusion. For the first time in history, humans had not only resisted an advanced extraterrestrial force, they had outsmarted it. In orbit, Krill's exoskeleton trembled with frustration. "Commander, they anticipated our strike. Every move we made was countered. How is this possible?" Valira remained calm, almost eerily so. "It is possible because we underestimated them. Their bodies may be fragile, their technology limited, but their minds are extraordinary. Initiative, adaptation, coordination, these are forces we cannot ignore." The humans, meanwhile, celebrated their small victories quietly. The streets of New York, illuminated by emergency lights and improvised power, were filled with engineers, volunteers, and ordinary citizens working together. In Tokyo, teams coordinated signals and improvised defenses with precision. Berlin's streets hummed with activity as humans restored critical systems. Across Sao Paulo, students, teachers, and volunteers transformed chaos into a symphony of organized ingenuity. For the Zalarian Armada, the realization was profound. They had encountered thousands of species before, but never one so small yet so unpredictable. Humans did not rely on brute force or advanced technology. They relied on adaptability, courage, and creativity. Every expectation was upended, every prediction confounded. Valira's voice carried through the fleet. "Mark this day. Humanity is no longer a species to observe passively. They are active participants. They are a force that cannot be predicted. We must proceed with caution, or we risk underestimating them completely." Krill, usually confident and composed, could only nod in silent agreement. The Zalarian Codex offered no guidance for a species like this. Fragile yet brilliant, unarmed yet capable, small yet capable of coordinating global defenses with unparalleled ingenuity. Humans had become a puzzle the aliens could not solve. On Earth, the aftermath of the strike attempt left humans inspired rather than afraid. They had faced an unknown, overwhelming force and survived. They had anticipated attacks, protected cities, and even engaged the alien fleet in a rudimentary form of communication. Humanity had proven that courage, intellect, and cooperation could rival any technological advantage. In the quiet that followed, Lena Armitage looked up at the stars from her lab. "They're watching us," she said softly, "and we're learning about them too." Her colleague Miguel Alvarez nodded. "We don't know what's coming next, but we've shown we can adapt, we can survive, and maybe we can win." The Zalarian Armada, still hovering above Earth, recalculated, analyzed, and debated. What they had encountered was not a species to conquer with brute force. What they had encountered was something far more dangerous: human ingenuity. Valira's voice echoed through the fleet one last time before the council reconvened. "Record everything. Learn from this. And remember, do not underestimate them. The galaxy is not ready for humans, not even close." Below, Earth rotated silently, unaware of the full scale of what had just occurred. Humanity had faced an interstellar force and emerged stronger, smarter, and more united. The turning point had been reached. From this moment onward, humans would no longer be passive observers in the universe. They would participate, adapt, and, if necessary, dominate. The stage was set. The galaxy had seen the first glimmer of humanity's true potential, and it was more than anyone had expected. The Zalarian Armada hovered in orbit, their silver hulls glinting faintly under the light of the distant sun. For the first time in centuries, an alien species had challenged their assumptions, confounded their calculations, and disrupted their pride. Humanity, a species the Zalarian Council had once dismissed as weak and insignificant, had become a puzzle they could not solve. Lieutenant Krill paced the command deck, his exoskeleton clicking softly against the floor. "Commander Valira," he said, frustration and disbelief in his tone, "they anticipate every move we make. Every tactic, every signal, it is unacceptable. Valira, standing before the holographic projection of Earth, remained calm, her eyes reflecting the spinning continents. Unacceptable, yes, but instructive. They are not just surviving, they are learning, adapting, and thriving. They are extraordinary. Below, humans moved with purpose and determination. Cities and towns had become a living network of coordination and ingenuity. The previous alien attempts to disrupt Earth had only sharpened humanity's focus. Engineers, scientists, and volunteers had built layers of redundant systems, improvised communication networks, and adaptive defenses that had never existed before. Humanity was no longer reacting. They were shaping the battlefield. Dr. Lena Armitage stood at a command hub in New York, surrounded by engineers, programmers, and analysts. A wall of screens showed signals intercepted from the alien fleet, along with live data from Earth's improvised networks. Lena's mind raced as she connected patterns, anticipated moves, and devised countermeasures. "We know their next step," she told the team. "They will attempt to force a direct confrontation, but we have prepared for this. Let's show them what humans are capable of." Across the globe, in Tokyo, Sao Paulo, Berlin, and countless smaller cities, similar operations unfolded. Humanity was united in purpose, driven not by fear but by creativity, courage, and cooperation. Ordinary citizens had become inventors, strategists, and problem solvers. Improvised drones, repurposed technology, and ingenious tactics formed a network of resistance unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. The Zalarian Armada decided on a decisive move. They would attempt a coordinated strike on multiple human centers, disabling infrastructure, intercepting communications, and asserting dominance once and for all. They believed that humanity would falter under pressure, that fear and confusion would allow the Armada to demonstrate superiority. But the aliens were wrong. Human engineers had anticipated the attack. Using a combination of data from prior encounters, mathematical modeling, and pure intuition, they predicted the fleet's movements. Redundant systems were activated, decoy signals broadcast, and mobile command centers ensured continuous coordination. Cities became living fortresses of information and ingenuity. When the Zalarian strike began, humans executed a flawless response. EMP pulses disrupted alien sensors, decoy networks led ships into traps, and drones intercepted reconnaissance units. Signals were scrambled, and the alien fleet was forced to adjust repeatedly, each adaptation countered by human innovation. In one critical moment, a small alien ship attempted a direct descent near a major spaceport. Humans had already prepared a countermeasure. A coordinated network of drones created an electromagnetic barrier that confused the ship's systems, forcing it into orbit without causing harm. Scientists, engineers, and volunteers watched as their improvised solution succeeded beyond expectation. Krill's claws clicked against the console in frustration. "They are outmaneuvering us without even knowing our full capabilities." Valira's response was measured. "That is the point. They do not need to know our systems fully to outsmart us. Initiative, ingenuity, and coordination, they possess all three in abundance. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is formidable." Meanwhile, on Earth, humans took a bold step. Using the data gathered from interactions and observations, they attempted direct communication with the alien fleet. Mathematical sequences, light patterns, and coded radio pulses were transmitted, each designed to establish contact and demonstrate intelligence. The alien fleet, initially confused, responded cautiously. The exchange was brief and fragile, but it marked humanity's first successful attempt at diplomacy with a species far more advanced. Dr. Lena Armitage watched the signals pulse across her monitors. "We're talking to them," she whispered, disbelief and excitement in her voice. "They're listening, and we were showing them that humans are capable, creative, and resilient. The Xylarian commanders convened an emergency council. Valira addressed her officers with gravity. We have faced countless species, but none like this. They are small, fragile, and primitive in appearance, but their minds are beyond prediction. They are capable of strategy, adaptation, and cooperation that surpasses our expectations. This is a species we cannot dominate easily, and underestimating them would be catastrophic. Krill's voice was tense. Commander, with all due respect, they are still primitive. Their technology is limited. We could strike decisively and force compliance. Valira's eyes were unwavering. Do you not see, Krill? This is not about weapons or fleets. This is about the mind. They outthink us, they adapt faster than we anticipate, and they coordinate in ways that we cannot predict. To strike now would be foolish. The galaxy is not ready for humans, not even close. The alien fleet began to withdraw, not in defeat but in cautious respect. Humanity had demonstrated that raw power and advanced technology were not the only measures of strength. Creativity, courage, and coordination could rival, and even surpass, superior firepower. On Earth, the celebrations were quiet but heartfelt. People had faced an unknown, overwhelming force and emerged stronger, smarter, and more united. They had anticipated attacks, protected their cities, and even communicated with beings far more advanced than themselves. Humanity had proven that ingenuity, determination, and moral courage were as powerful as any weapon. Lena Armitage stepped outside her command hub, looking up at the night sky. Stars glittered like diamonds, and somewhere beyond them, the Xylarian armada watched. Humanity had announced its presence, not with violence but with intelligence, creativity, and resilience. Miguel Alvarez joined her, smiling faintly. We've shown them what humans can do. We've survived, adapted, and engaged, and I think we've surprised them. Yes, Lena said softly, awe in her voice. We have, and this is only the beginning. The galaxy has no idea what humanity is capable of. As the Xylarian fleet retreated, they sent back reports to their council, describing a species unlike any other. Humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and morally complex. They had survived attacks, countered advanced technology, and even initiated communication with intelligence beyond their world. The council debated in silence, realizing that they had underestimated humanity in ways they could not fully quantify. Back on Earth, life continued, but with a new sense of purpose. Humanity had looked beyond the stars and seen that they were not alone. They had faced the unknown and emerged not just unbroken, but stronger. Engineers, scientists, volunteers, and everyday citizens had all contributed, proving that unity, ingenuity, and courage could achieve the impossible. In a quiet room in Berlin, a student looked at a model of the stars, imagining spacecraft and distant worlds. One day, he whispered, we'll go out there, and they'll see what we can do. And across Earth, millions of people dreamed the same dream. Not of conquest or war, but of exploration, discovery, and proving that humanity, clever, courageous, and cooperative, could thrive in a universe that underestimated it. Valira, observing from orbit, recorded the final transmission. This species, she said quietly, they are not ready by our calculations, but they are ready in every way that matters. The galaxy is not ready for humans. And somewhere, on a small blue-green planet spinning silently in the void, humanity gazed at the stars. The first encounter had ended, but the legacy of that moment had just begun. Humanity had proven its worth, not with violence but with the most powerful weapons of all, courage, intelligence, and unity. The galaxy had taken note, and the galaxy indeed was not ready.